Hello, everyone. Dr. Allen here. Hope you're having a great week. We got a few things to do this week, but we're winding down with Flat World Education. Actually, we're winding down. It's getting close to midterm. It's unbelievable. It's February. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. But before I do that, I do want to give everyone a quick shout out. When I read the Zim projects, hopefully those grades are up by the time you're watching this. Uh, these were really good. I loved how everyone kind of connected it to their area. I know that page kind of leans a little social studies, and forgive me, that's where I come from. I'm familiar with that resource, but I really liked how people who were in science or STEM picked things that were related to science or STEM and how they can diversify lessons or at least examples of diversification in those areas. Someone I know who does elementary found a bunch of picture books that were on there that they could potentially use or lessons that they could use. So long story short, they were really good. Thank you very much. I know it's a little unique one, but I'm trying to maybe mix it up a little bit so we're not just writing papers all the time and things like that. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up Flat World Education today. I know I sent out a link on Wakelet for the Wakelet assignment that'll be due this week. And just an overview, but I'm going to do a quick crash course like in 2 minutes just to kind of show you how Wakelet works in case you need a one more reminder. Um, we'll be done with the Flat World Education book this week. I know a lot of the topics are a little repetitive in that. So I think it'll be nice to kind of break off and do the finished lessons, which actually she talks a little bit about the global education world, global education system, and things around the world. So it might be a nice little break off there. And of course, next week, not this week, but I already sent it out. The action plans are due. And the Wakelet and the action plans are actually the only things due in the next couple of weeks. The action plan is the big thing for this class. And I want to make sure you have time to do that. But this week, we'll wrap everything up and we'll kind of go from there. And let me just go right on in. I'm going to share my screen and cover what we're going to do. Excuse me, I'm going to toggle back and forth between Chrome and Safari because I opened up my stuff on both so I could go back and forth. Um, okay, real quick, just to kind of go over what we're going to be doing this week. As you can see, we're wrapping up Flat World. I'm not going to spend too much time. I think she hammers her points home pretty well, especially if everyone's been completing the reading. The discussion boards have been great, so I know everyone has. Um, but I do want to kind of just do an overall summary right at the end. And then we're going to talk about geographic and socioeconomic diversity. I'm going to take a little bit of a unique approach with that today, and I'll share all this information. I actually went to a conference in December, the National Council of Social Studies, and don't worry, it's not a social studies lesson, but it was a session on Appalachia and Appalachian like issues with education and the barriers that they face. I think it connects really well to a lot of the Darling Hammond type points that she's making. So, excuse me. Let me go ahead and jump right in and go to my notes and just to rehash what she was saying for this final bit. I haven't opened it yet, so it's not showing. Excuse me. Excuse. All right. Again, these were just my notes, and actually, for some reason, I made them larger, so maybe you can actually see them this time. um, just again, some of the overall points that she was trying to make in this thing is make sure you have meaningful learning goals. Whether they're coming from professional organizations or curriculum experts, school districts need to work with these, look at these, and just don't throw things at the wall and hope that they stick. They have to be meaningful, and that sometimes means bringing in the experts, but it also means making it useful for students. Make sure that there's accountability systems, whether it's monitoring for quality teaching, trying to get as many government resources and funding as you can. Make sure that all things are balanced, so to speak. I think I have that down there too. Well, it's number three, of course, having equitable and adequate resources for all schools in a school district throughout a state, throughout the nation. I've mentioned it multiple times. I think I posted it already, but this week it was from the last semester. I have the Little Rock High. It's not the HBO doc. It was a little short one from History Channel if you wanted to see it if you didn't watch the others. But just make sure all schools are equitable and all. And of course, it comes back in. We talked about the Supreme Court cases. It comes back to that Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus Board, things of that nature. Make sure that you have strong professional standards and support for educators, a system of quality teachers. This again, I think I've mentioned this, but in our teacher preparation program, which she talks about at length in this book, uh, that's something we're still always trying to improve and model here at Shepherd. Some things work, some things don't, but I think you have to be reflective in how you approach and be honest with things that aren't working and be willing to modify them. Um, Professional standards is something that we have on our STOT. I don't know if anyone went through our program, but you may be familiar with it. If you have, hope you will be. It's our how we measure student teachers that they go out, and actually professionalism is actually the last two major aspects of that. And a lot of it is how you communicate with your colleagues, how you communicate with students, professional dress, things of that nature, communication with parents. So again, and make sure that schools, teacher preparation programs, and districts have a system in place to produce quality teachers. Again, it's kind of one of those things where it all needs to work together. And sometimes there are little kinks that need to, get hammered out and things like that. But anyway, that's a major aspect of what she's talking about in the book, of course. And of course, schools should be organized for both student and teacher learning. And what I mean by teacher learning and what she means by teacher learning is invest in preparation and planning, professional development. I can't tell you how many teachers I worked with. I taught middle school for 15 years, and I can't tell you how many teachers that I worked with. Love them to death. But when I started, they were still using the same worksheets, the same like concepts, the same teaching methods that they were 15 years later. And some of those things did work, but a lot of it had become dated. A lot of it was just not meeting, students and have changed. There was when I started teaching, to sound silly, the internet wasn't that old. And to boot, there were no iPhones, there wasn't things like that. Students are different today. And I don't mean that, people are people, but the way we learn, what holds our attention, what doesn't. And a lot of teachers just, didn't adapt. You know, Actually, and this is actually, I want to give a good shout out. I was thinking, I know some people in here teach in Berkeley County. I remember when I think there was a huge technology internet issue that had occurred last time. And a lot of teachers had actually told me, I won't say that they said it was a good thing, but they said that one thing that it did make them do is relook at their lessons and freshen them up. And they thought maybe some of the teaching that was going on after that was good because they had gotten so used to this technology and the Chromebooks and things like that that they had to look at things and kind of adapt it. And by the way, I'm not poo-pooing technology. I teach our ed tech class here at Shepherd, but I think sometimes you do have to do that in a balance, so to speak. And of course, that's a long statement. That's something that a speech that she had made at Northwestern. But basically, it's that equality for teachers, equality for students, and making sure that everything is all in there. Um, Teacher preparation is a big thing. And if I was going to pick one big theme out of this book, I keep coming back, and maybe it's my bias a little bit because where I work, but I do think the teacher preparation was something that she really, really hammers home. And like I say, and that's not just at the university system. I think it's just with schools and states in general, and how to attract quality educators, how to keep quality educators, and things of that nature. So those were some of the big themes. And of course, I think I threw this on here because I forgot to put it on there. But of course, standardized testing. If you're going to have it, maybe allow a little more student opinions to be written and not just be such a straightforward, it's black or it's white type answers. So maybe a little bit of shades of gray with opinions. So that's just the overall concepts of the book that I took from chapter 9. Now, you may have gotten some other stuff, but that was like my big thing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about just for a few minutes, and I'm going to move my face over here. Um, and let's see if I can move that down. I can, but I think I can shrink it so I can get to it. Yep. All right, sorry, I'm working on my home Mac. I'm used to having multiple screens in my home office or my work office. My home, I have a Mac over here, a big one, and I have my laptop. Um, these are things that I just wanted to show. Back in December, I went to a conference, like I said, the National Council of Social Studies. And one of the things that I went to was, and I'm going to pull their site up. It's actually, let me go up to the top here. This is it's an organization that looks at socioeconomic and geographic trends. And one region, the presentation I went to, I'm showing it like I can see the board, is it was a poster presentation, but it was really, really interesting. I talked to the people for about 15, 20 minutes. It was on Appalachia and some of the trends in education there. Now, I'm not going to get into a history lesson. That's good stuff for 200 or your 583, I think, class or 581, things like that, if you want to get more into that. But, I kind of got to thinking about it, and, perception is reality sometimes, rightly or wrongly. And if you look at this, and they had this all over the map. The presentation was from a group in Pennsylvania, actually, but this people who were working with this group. But if you look here, this is a list of all the percentage of households in Appalachia that have broadband. And if you look, we fall, well, Berkeley County, Jefferson County, we fall into that. And I thought that was interesting because I think if you asked a lot of students, if you asked a lot of teachers, what do we always say? I live in Berkeley County. Well, we're not quite like the rest of West Virginia, and we're not. And I guess in some regards, this broadband map kind of validates that statement in some ways because it's the topography. This is way more hilly, way more mountainous. It is the Appalachian Mountains, Appalachia, however you want to say it. It keeps floating back and forth. Um, but if you look, we're still considered part of it. And I thought that's kind of interesting because all the politics and everything that happens here really does affect us here. So here affects here. So I kind of got to thinking about it. So they had a bunch of infographics, and I thought I would just share those and we could kind of look at them real quick. I'll make sure that they're posted. But excuse me, right off the bat, I think this map, and you can make a lot of, you can use your context clues, inferences, whatever. But if you look in the Appalachian Mountains, you can tell this north or northeast section seems to be a little more developed, which is understandable, especially over here. You're getting close to New York City and things like that. Then, outside of, Morgantown, Berkeley, and Jefferson, everywhere else in West Virginia, has less than 70% internet basically or broadband. And as you can look, it's kind of prevalent. And the trends in Appalachian education are I don't want to say troubling, but it's definitely I don't want to say it's a forgotten section, but I do think sometimes there's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of things that are just associated with it, and they have a lot of issues, and a lot of it relates to just getting access to things. A lot of it is financial. Uh, so anyway, and I think West Virginia, to an extent, is the poster child for this region, and the main reason why is there's only one state in all of these that the entire state falls into this region, and it's West Virginia. So anyway, hope what I was just saying makes sense, but I just want to show a couple of infographics and just kind of highlight that the geographic, the socioeconomic issues that we're thinking. We're when I worked for the state, I used to do policy training way back in the 90s. When I first came out of school, I had a history degree. I actually did policy training. They actually paid for me to go to WVU to get an education degree right when I was like 22, 23. So I could go in and like talk to like areas down in here and up in here, like as far as training and just some of the communication skills. That's how I got into social studies education, actually. Um, but anyway, let's do income and poverty first. This is the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and expand that real quick so we can see it. And then I'll shrink it back up here in a minute. But as you can look here, Appalachia has 83% of the average income or the median income of what's in the US. All right, so it's already, in Flat World, she talks about income and bringing things up. This is something that we're kind of fighting right off the bat. I know teacher pay is a big one, and that's a big thing that she talks about. And I know in West Virginia, we're always talking about more equitable pay based on Maryland, based on Virginia, and other places. But we're already kind of behind the eight ball just on our average income. And as you look here, Appalachians, the lowest income is in Central Appalachia, which I would hate to say is probably us or right around in there. And as you can see, that's kind of it. Also, it's a declining population. And that's on another slide. But if you've ever looked at anything this isn't on the infographic, but West Virginia is one of the only states since 1950, I think, that has actually lost population. Um, Now, there are some positive trends. There has been some slight decline in the percentage of poverty rates, at least in that period that they were looking at in 2008 through 2012. But it's still much higher than the US average. And as you can see there, the poverty rate in Appalachia is 16.3, and in the US it's 14.6. And I would imagine even though these are a little older numbers, I still think that that's probably a pretty fair reflection of what's going on. And then here's the overall, and as you can see, the numbers. And it looks like, we talked about the central region, and I was going to say we fall into that. We're up. Again, I think Berkeley and Jefferson are a little bit of an outlier as far as the rest of West Virginia. Actually, I know they are because we've actually gained population. But as you can see, West Virginia as a whole, it struggles. And I don't know how much everyone has gotten to venture out to other school districts if you do teach in West Virginia or if you go to Western Maryland or anywhere like that. The schools, I mean, most of those areas are consolidating. I was just talking to a teacher. I was in a classroom doing an observation this week. She was from the southern part of the state, and she was telling me the county that she came from. She came from Mingo County. At one time, they had 7 high schools. They're down to 2. So, and a lot of it is because they don't have jobs or anything like that. I can't remember if it's Mingo or McDowell County, but um, their Walmart closed. I believe it might have been McDowell, but I'll have to double check that. I'll send that out. I don't state anything incorrectly, but think about that. I mean, I don't know if anyone goes to Walmart or if you're more of a Target person, but a Walmart closing is a huge deal. That's doesn't happen very often. So anyway, those are some of the numbers just as far as that, and we're going to talk about them in terms of education here in a second. Whoops, let me shrink this back down. Sorry, that little bar kind of blocks me. Uh, this is one. I wanted to look at one other thing. That is the population. I also wanted to look at the population. I'll come back to the internet because I think that's the one with the thing, the big one with education. But just to kind of look at the makeup of Appalachia also, um, and you can see there's about 25 and 30 million people that live in the region. Um, it's grown slightly, but as you can see, the nation's population has grown almost 5%, where this region's only grown a little over 1%. Again, why aren't people moving in there? A lot of it is job opportunities. A lot of it is access to technology. A lot of it is infrastructure. I mean, think about it. If you live in Martinsburg or Charlestown or somewhere in between or Shepherdstown, if you're going to our state capital, how do you drive? You go through Maryland and down through West Virginia or through Virginia, across through West Virginia. You have to drive through another state. I guess you could technically go corridor H, but even then you still have to drive, I think, partially through Virginia. So with that being said, this is the differences. And you're probably thinking, well, this is great from a geographic type standpoint, but how does that relate to education? Well, think about it. Even with school districts, uh, again, someone I was talking to when I was actually doing the training, I used to go into schools and stuff like that. I was in Randolph County, and I remember someone from Randolph County telling me how long some of the kids were on the school bus. I don't know if you've ever looked at a map of West Virginia or at least looked at one recently. Randolph County, land-wise, is a big county, and they don't have a lot of high schools. Don't have a lot of schools in general. They actually had a small school they had to create just so some kids were on the bus for well over an hour. And a lot of that relates to infrastructure and having the money to do these things. Um, not all states kind of fight that. And there's some of the other changes. It is not a heavily diverse area. Appalachia is, as you can see there, minorities make up about 19% of the population versus almost 40% of the U.S. I think that number is actually over 40 now. I think on just the last census. And as you can see here are the different groups. African Americans and Hispanics make up the majority of minorities that are in the state. Or, I'm sorry, in the region. Hispanics are the fastest growing. And I will say I was in another part, again, just West Virginia oriented, Hardy County, that I know Hardy County, even there, it's a huge poultry county. Their population is actually increasing slightly. And a lot of it has to do with a large amount of Hispanics are moving in and they're starting to work in places like the poultry factories that are there and such. So I was in Moorfield High School, and they had a large Hispanic population, which I think obviously we've talked about in this class. Diversity is a good thing. So, um, but it's areas where they're not used to having diversity. So, and meeting those needs, whether do they have ESL language, education to help those students that are in there. Hope I'm making sense there. But basically, as your population starts to diversify, you need to meet the needs of those students, is what I'm trying to get to. So, and as you can see, and then there's some other ones. The other thing I just kind of wanted to throw out there, and again, I'll put this on there. There's always the push for technology. I know I made the mention where Berkeley counties went down, and maybe it kind of caused teachers to kind of look at things in a different way. That would be great if that was, well, let me rephrase that. I don't want technology, the reason it happened, the, the reason the crash happened to happen all the time. I will say this: technology is in schools and it's here to stay. Now, how we use it, how we utilize it, I think that's probably the question more than anything. With that being said, if we're going to use technology, we need to have good technology, or at least accessible technology, and we can't penalize students for it. Again, let me just show this up here. I'll break this down. You'll be able to read the numbers. But I always come back to something I thought about when I was in another school in a West Virginia county, and all these counties are buying. I was in one county; they bought MacBooks for all their students. It was awesome, and they're more expensive than Chromebooks. They really put the money into it. But one of the teachers told me she didn't even make half of her. She didn't require her students to take them home. They could lock them up in the cabinet. And I was like, why don't they take them home? Don't they use them? She said most of the students don't even have internet, so we're assigning these things online, and the students can't do them as homework because they don't have internet. And I thought about that. I was like, wow, that's not a problem by and large here, but it is, if you're going to use technology and produce things like Schoology or Google Classroom and all, if your students don't have internet, are they penalized? I don't think you can do that, obviously. So, anyway, if you look, about 82% of households in Appalachia have access to a computer device. That's slightly below the US average, about 5%. And as you can see, they have, but here you go, 63% have a smartphone, but only about 42% have a plan. So again, what they can actually, utilize is very, very limited. And as you can see, there's some of that, and this makes sense, but you can kind of see it's almost, again, we're kind of in that sweet spot, that central Appalachian region of, West Virginia and Kentucky, and I guess a portion of North Carolina and Tennessee. That's where the lowest type things happen. I will say, I think we pulled this percentage up, and not just Berkeley and Jefferson. I think some of these areas, even like Hardy and Hampshire, those are areas that are starting to kind of, I think, get pulled up slightly with proximity to the cities and the way everything's growing. And as you can see, the area of New York. But again, if you're going to use technology, you've got to have students that have access to it. So I just wanted to make the point, Appalachia is an area where we're fighting a lot of things. I'm going to go back to that graph, the original one, if I can find it. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Whoops. Sorry, this is not the scientific approach. There it is. Again, I just wanted to point out, this is such a huge region, and there's a lot of stereotypes to go with it and all, but it's fighting a lot of things. I mean, I think about this is coal region. Again, if you had a chance to watch the thing on Arthurdale last week, that, I think, even though that was 70, 80 years ago now, um, the Great Depression, oh gosh, almost, yeah, 80 years, over 80 years. The problems are still kind of the same. It's just like, unemployment, getting an education. If there's not a lot of resources or income coming in that region, how do you get a good education in there? And how do you make it more equitable? Like Flat World Education's talking about in Darling Hammond. So as you can see, I just think this map reflects a lot. So anyway, that's just me babbling a little bit about, the economics of the geographic issues that we're facing here in the Appalachian region as far as education goes, and things related to technology. Now, before I kind of jump off and kind of turn you on your way, let me go back got all these things open. And I'll make sure that I'll post all this if you want it. take a more detailed look. This week, you have something called a Wakelet. I don't know how familiar everyone is. It's pretty simple to use, but you're going to locate 10 articles related to an educational issue. I am not too picky about this. I want you to think about something that's useful for you. And what I mean by that is if you teach STEM, if you can find some things maybe about the issues with teaching STEM or the challenges that you're facing, policies, anything like that, go for it. You can do 10 articles related to that. If you want to do something on LGBTQ, go for it. If you want to do things on race issues, Supreme Court, that's fine. Um, I did something, well, I didn't do, but if I was in social studies, I might do something on the 1619 project and whether, articles, the pros and cons on that, or at least the arguments that are pros and cons. I'm pretty open to it. I just want you to kind of focus on a single issue, though. Um, it could be Appalachia and like the issues with the teaching we're facing or crisis. It could be pay, teacher pay, anything like that. It can be, it can be policy, it can be classroom, whatever. Wakelet itself is pretty easy to use. Like I say, I sent that video, but just to pull it up, I'm going to go pull that down. Yep. All you need to do is go to wakelet.com. Can't really see it, but it's called wakelet.com. You can sign in with just it's a free account. You don't pay, please do not pay for anything. You can do the free one. Most people find it easy to use their Google login and you can do that. I'm already in. These are other ones that I've used. I think I shared one with you, a couple of them earlier this semester. As you can see, I was actually when I was gathering Supreme Court stuff. But once you get to this page, you're going to hit create collections. And all you have to do is this. I'm going to do an issue in West Virginia. We'll just do West Virginia education. No, again, this is kind of broad. All right, and you can just type in something. A state in the middle of change. I'm totally making that title up, but we'll go with it. Now, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can add text, which we'll do here in a sec. You can do a PDF, which is that, not that. You can attach a PDF. As you can see, there's the old waffle, which if you click, it can other things. You can put videos up, you can put tweets, anything like that. All of this works. This counts as one. Probably the easiest thing, what most people do, and I will admit, is what I usually do. Let's just type in total things. My son wasn't on my computer today, so forgive me if there's anything weird down there. He was probably looking to see what was going on with wrestling this morning. Let's see. Yeah, we'll just do West Virginia Metro News. All right. And if you look, let's see if we can get anything. Well, let's do something better than that. West Virginia education. And kind of boggle this slightly. Let's make it slow. There we go. We'll just do the Department of Ed. That's an easy one. I will. Yes, my son was watching, and I guess The Rock came back last night, so he was watching it and all into that. So I need to look at that stuff on my computer. Any rumors? But anyway, okay. Now that I'm here, once I've titled my page, you can go paste. You click there, it should paste it up. I pasted the address right there, and it should pop up down here. There it is. Now, usually it's a little clearer than that, but I think it's still loading up a little bit. But it tells me a little bit about that. Now, you can add text to it. As it says here, you can add the text beforehand. I usually do it this way. I usually just hit edit and do something like this, and then you can add more down there if you want or change it. I would like you to have a little bit down there, even if it's the website. I'm not too picky. I just want to see a description of some sort down there. If it's the one that loads up, that's fine. I'm not, it's all good. But I want you to find 10 things, and then after you do that, of course, you can just X out. And then if you wanted to do another one, let's do West Virginia. Let's do issues in West Virginia education. West Virginia News, that's a good one. And we'll click that. Mhm. Didn't show up the thing, but that I would not pen on. That's not your issue. I think that's more my Safari because I need to update it. That's the second thing. It's there. It probably would look a little prettier if you put it on there. You can also do PDFs and all, but just 10 things. Let's do a YouTube video. YouTube, West Virginia. Actually, better yet, why don't we just actually use the YouTube link? Here we go. We'll do West Virginia education. And by the way, I don't care what um there's no requirement on the order. So if you have 10 YouTube videos, that's fine. If you have 10 internet articles, that's fine. If you have 10 PDFs, that's fine. If you have 3 YouTube videos and 3 websites and 3 whatever, that's fine. There you go. That looks much better. And then again, you can just go in here and type things if you want to. And add stuff. Make sure that it's, polished a little bit. But that's it. 10 things. I want you to look. But again, make it apply to something with you. I'd like to just see, it gives me an idea of where you're coming from and what your interests are. I think I got that a little bit from the Zen project. Now, to submit it, and by the way, I don't know how much you're into this. You can change the design, the layouts, and all that over here if you really want to. I'm good either way. But some people like the compact, some like the rows that kind of look like Padlets and stuff, and you can put background images up here. So if you want to get into all that, go for it, but it's not required. If you hit share, there's one thing I want you to make sure that you do before you send it to me. Make sure you publish it, because you have to publish it for me to actually see it. And then when there you go. And then you just submit the link. I think a lot of you know this, but you can either email me the link, or sometimes you have to put it on a Word document and put the link on there to submit it on Brightspace. So just give you that. You can also just send the QR code if you want. If you'd rather just download the QR code, put that on there. But that's Wakelet, 10 things. If you could do that, that would be awesome. I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to go ahead and say that should do it. I'm making sure I'm not overlooking anything. There's some other documents I'll have. That's a PowerPoint on some of the socioeconomic statuses that are going. I didn't want to go. It's one that I've used in other classes, but I think we would get a little bogged down. So if you want to look a little more about the overview of everything and how we have more equity in schools, it is there for you to definitely check out. And I think that is it. Before I sign off, I want to make sure, not seeing everyone, I get a little scared sometimes. And I did put there's the instructions for that. I did put the action plan up for any, like I said, early birds. That's a bigger assignment. So if you want to go ahead and get it going, that's fine. I'm going to talk about it more next week, but the goals are there and everything. Basically, you just need to address each goal in your paper. And you can literally say, goal 1, this is how I would address this. Goal 2. So anyway, that is it for me. I hope I didn't babble too much. I hope this helps. Everyone's doing great work. I hope that, semester's going well. It's sneaking up so fast. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop just babbling and let everyone enjoy their Saturday. If you're watching this on a Saturday, I'm filming it on a Saturday. So I'm going to go out and enjoy the nice weather, I think, this afternoon. So have a good week.